Hello everyone, my name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. Every October for the last few years, I've shared a homebrewed monster for Dungeons & Dragons each and every day, and this October is no different. So here is your monster a day for October 20th, 2023. The work week is almost wrapped up, and we're nearly done with the named Fey Knights that I'm covering for week number 3. These are all members of the Waning Court, a homebrew group of Fey that I use for a very horror-themed Dungeons & Dragons campaign that really focuses on folk horror, body horror, and cosmic horror. The reason I've been doing this is twofold. One, I get to explore the Waning Court and its various machinations and factions by describing these personalities to you that kind of represent the different mini courts within it based on which reigning prince or princess they follow. Two, I hope it helps people that are coming up with antagonists for their own games really think about how to develop the personalities that they want to give the individual monsters that players run into that become, well, memorable villains that they will want to defeat. As a quick recap, every Waning Knight has a couple of abilities that they all share. They are CR 10, but the ones this week have all been CR 11 because they have unique abilities to them. The abilities they all share are as follows. They all have at least damage resistance to lightning, thunder, and non-magical, non-silver attacks. They all have Aura of Arrogance, so when they are missed with an attack by a creature, that creature has disadvantage on further attacks against the knight until end of turn. They all have Magic Resistance. They all have Ephemeral Mien, because they are otherworldly and strange and alien. They can move through difficult terrain without penalty, and once per day they can Misty Step, but until the end of turn the knight's speed becomes 0 at that point. And they all have Prideful Stride. Whenever they reduce a creature to 0 hit points, they can use their bonus action to then move without provoking an opportunity attack. Again, to really flesh out that they are strange and different, but super arrogant and prideful creatures. The last few days, we've been covering a fairy knight that works for each of the waning princes and princesses, as I mentioned. Today and tomorrow, we'll be going over ones who work for the court in general, but have no direct allegiance to one of these powerful archfey. In this case, today we're talking about Mockingbird the Humorless. He is a true mercenary within the Waning Court. Mockingbird cares only about feeling something that he hasn't in a very long time, which is excitement. He always accepts payments for his services, of course, as that is the expectation of a contract, but he only accepts contracts that will bring him conflict with potentially worthy opponents to get that excitement. Those that hire him realize that they may be fighting him again on the next war campaign, but they also realize that he is never going to break one of those contracts because he is still a lawful creature. Before the Waning Court was fractured into the 5 miniature courts that it is today of the 5 different siblings, Mockingbird was actually the king under Amber's court jester. He didn't get the position, though, because he was funny or brought truth to power as a jester should, as his liege cared for neither, but because his grim demeanor and dry mimicry skills bemused the king himself. Once the king was betrayed, again, no one was quite sure by who, Mockingbird was turned out and had to make his own way in the world, which was fine by him. He stoically accepted this new reality as he does everything. He is not only adept at blade and magic, but he can also copy the abilities of those he fights, whether hero or beast. His strange bite is likewise envenomed with a psychic malaise that drains the will to do, well, anything, and takes the fight right out of his foes. So let's take a look at his statistics for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Now again, he is a CR 11 creature. He has a lower armor class because he doesn't actually wear armor. He just goes about in his drab, jester-like outfit. He does have athletics and deception. He is immune to charmed and frightened because he is such a stoic, listless figure. He does have innate spellcasting, but it is calm emotions that he can cast twice per day. He does have mimicry, so he can mimic any animal or humanoid sound that he has heard before. That is very hard to tell exactly that it is not what it's supposed to be. As mentioned, he likes to bite his opponents, and thus he gets one more attack on his multi-attack, so he can do this if he chooses to do so. And this bite does piercing damage and psychic damage. In addition, the target has to make a charisma saving throw, or become indifferent about creatures Mockingbird chooses, thus is no longer hostile to them, and remains this way for the next minute, unless they take damage or one of their associates take damage, at which point they can repeat this save for the effect to end. However, if they fail to save by 5 or more, they become completely listless and can take no actions during that minute instead. He also has a very powerful reaction, which is soul mimicry. So not only can he mimic the sounds of creatures, if he successfully deals damage to a creature with his bite attack, he can use his reaction. So for the next minute, he can access one of their abilities, class abilities, bonus actions, or reactions, as if it was one of his own. Again, this ability lasts for 1 minute or until he uses soul mimicry again. Thus, he can take an opponent's best ability and turn it back against him. Alright, I really enjoy Mockingbird. I think he is a fun sort of foil antagonist to how the Waning Court is usually perceived. You can find Mockingbird, as well as every creature so far for this October, every creature for a previous October, and hundreds of other horror-themed creatures for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, all perfectly free at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the non-Dungeons & Dragons horror role-playing game projects that I have, or the horror fiction that I write, which includes Grease Paint right there, it's got a killer clown in it, it's a fun read, you can always go to www.zacharyoshay.com. I really appreciate your time and your attention, and I hope everybody has a great weekend.